Alright everyone, thanks for coming in. Today's going to be a little bit of an update video. Going to cover a few different things. Try to make it nice and short again. One thing that I'm going to give an update on is what we're doing for sealing the windows. And obviously we figured out what ones we want to keep and what ones we're going to be blocking off. Dictated obviously by our layout. But it is kind of a messy job. It's not too hard, but it is very tedious. All the windows in this particular bus are kind of held in with these black plates. They screw into the side or each of these pillars. And then after that, it's basically the old butyl rubber or rope tape that's holding them in, and some, well, basically all the way around the window. So what we have to do is scrape it off all the window frames, off all the windows once they're out. We tried aircraft stripper. That works pretty good, but it also kind of makes it almost too sticky once it's done. But this is the window that came out of this hole, and we already cleaned it up. I'm going to be resealing and putting this one in today. But basically using some sort of a stripper or chemical, acetone is what we've been using, will help remove some of the goo off the inside, the remnants of the butyl rope tape. So that kind of helps, and then once it's all cleaned off, we've been just putting some sort of primer on it. I've been getting butyl rope cord from a local auto glass specialist. It kind of goes pretty quick, as you can see in this roll right here. It looks like a lot, but it actually goes pretty quick. And then on certain parts of the window we've been using 3M seam sealer. So basically we've been using the butyl rope tape or caulk right here and along the bottom of the window to make sure that the butyl rope gets in the right place for the top of the window. Instead of actually putting it in the frame of the bus, we've actually been putting it along the top of the window. That pretty much ensures that we have it in the right spot. But for the bottom, it's a little bit easier to get right. We've just been sticking it right to here. And then we've been using the 3M seam sealer on the vertical edges. And then once the window's in, we go on the outside and we kind of run some seam sealer on the outside along the top if necessary, but mainly just the sides and the bottom to seal up the window. So that's where we're at with the windows right now. We got pretty much this whole side done for the windows that we want to keep, and we're going to basically be starting on this side of the bus within the next couple days. I think we have about another 10 windows to do or so. But yeah, that's a lot of fun. And then my next project, or I already started it, but it's always a fun project, is the wiring. As you can see, this is the main wire harness coming from the front of the bus that has all the turn signals and warning lights. It comes down, branches off into here, goes into the panel on the outside of the bus on the driver's side, has a bunch of fuses and relays and stuff in there, and all this spaghetti runs along and comes to the back, in which case it wraps around all the way to this side. Now luckily I was able to remove the entire wiring harness from this side, which was basically just for speakers and cab lighting and stuff like that. But then I disconnected the upper turn signals because I can't use those anyway. I'm going to pull those lights out eventually and blank them off from the outside with some 18 gauge sheet metal and seam around it with seam sealer. But my goal was to simplify all this wiring. And in some ways I got all the wires identified and labeled, but it's still such a mess because I know all my lights work, my turn signals and everything work when the wiring harness up at the front were plugged in, but even the box on the upper corner here that allows the bus driver to make sure that his lights are on, if that thing's unplugged, the lights don't work in the back. And I've identified that I can remove these two and keep these two plugged in, and my turn signals and tail lights, everything all work in the back. I've identified the main wires in the front here and in the back of the bus for when I potentially wire up for a trailer harness. So I have my reverse, my running lights, brake lights, turn signals, all the key wires. But the confusing thing, all those main wires that I need are in this one harness here. But if I disconnect this one, which seems like a bunch of wires I don't need, they don't work. My turn signal, all the lights in the back don't work. So my guess is there's some sort of a common ground back in this harness that when it's unplugged, these lights don't work. Now my goal was, like I said, I was really hoping just to maybe make my own harness from here back that was just for, like I said, the key running lights, or for turns, the turn signals, brake, reverse, that stuff. But I'm really afraid that I'm opening up a can of worms here, because when you get to the back, at some point the wires kind of split off and branch off. One second. Alright, now that that's done. I was really hoping to have it simplified by the time I got back here, but I really just want to keep moving forward on the bus, and I'm afraid that I'm going to either snip a wire or get in over my head, and it's going to be really difficult to try to figure all this out. And then in the end, I'm going to be regretting that I even started it, and I should have just left it alone, and so forth. So, but at least I've identified the wires here that I'm going to need to splice into for when I hook up a trailer. And I think this one right here with the white wires coming out of it, I think that is for possibly the common ground, because I trace it up to this wire harness here, which goes up to those 3 running lights in the back, because when this harness, which I presume is maybe grounds or something, and when this is unplugged, those lights don't work, but when it's plugged in, they do. So it's just a bunch of stuff like that that I just don't know if I really want to deal with right now. So I think I'm going to just wrap it up with wire tape like it was and put the original loom back on. Because also with this wiring with these buses, if you have, once again, that starter interlock system where the bus driver has to walk along the back and make sure there's no students, pretty much anything that's emergency related has some sort of a wire harness going to it. Like this is an emergency window, and it has a wire going to it, and all of these tie into the system that the driver has to check, or if they're open, the bus isn't going to start. And depending on your bus, some people have had nightmares where they snip wires that, or disconnect them. They didn't try to start the bus every time. All of a sudden they disconnected a bunch of different things, and now their bus won't start. Now they're trying to go backwards and figure out what they did. Luckily, with all my hatches and emergency windows cut, and with even if I have all these wires disconnected, which actually allows me to bypass the interlock system, my bus still turns over. I can still turn the key and it still starts. There's no warning. So at least, like I said, I've identified which wires I need for the key wiring for a trailer, and I'll actually go through the color code. If anybody has a bus like this, it should be about the same to a certain point, I guess, within a range of years. I'm not going to say which. Now, it'd be really nice to have International's manual with the wiring diagrams in it, but you pretty much have to be a dealer or a licensed, or pay for a license or something to get those, and I don't have it, and I'm not going to get it. So I'll kind of read off what wires I've identified in a couple of these harnesses. And out of this one here, I've identified that yellow is the left turn signal. Green, it might be hard to make out, but green is the right turn signal. A dark brown wire is for just the running, 12 volt running, so when you just put your parking lamps on or turn the headlights on, that turns on your tail lights as they should. So dark brown should be running lights. Light blue should be reverse, and then red is the brake lights. Now there's one red coming up that's for the brake lights, but then it branches off into 3 different other red lights or wires back here. So like I said, I wish it was more simple, but I'm afraid I'm going to get in over my head and really regret going any further with it. So I'm just going to wrap it back up and put the original looming that I took off. And I'm going to call it a day, because right now it's not hurting anything, and I'd rather just have it. I'd rather be done with it. And then the only other thing that I plan on working on today is taking this whole bulkhead cap area off, so the mirror, and because we want to be able to insulate in there, and a lot of people make this maybe an area to mount a TV or maybe storage for gloves, hats, that kind of thing. The only thing I'm going to be keeping is, like I said, this factory turn signal thing. I'll show the front. So it looks like that. I'm going to keep that because, once again, that's tied in with the wiring. But that's where we're basically at right now. We're about halfway through sealing up our windows. I'll maybe show some of the process of it doing that. And wiring, I'm going to get that finished up. And then once the bulkhead is down, maybe tomorrow I should have my steel. I'm going to start making the racking system for my solar panels. There's going to be 2 panels right here and 2 on the other side of the emergency hatch there. But I'll get more into that later. So once again, thanks for joining. I'll try to keep more updates, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right, thanks.